So I am here again. So now I have learned not to answer people on this Facebook Live at the same time. Like, I'm really trying to get a hang of it. I'm so trying to get a hang of this thing. So how do I now know? Oh my goodness. Our topic today is on reparenting yourself, and I was already on another broadcast, and then it just changed. So I'm just gonna wait for all my viewers to come and meet me here. How do I do that? Okay, I guess I just invite people through this medium. I need to stop being a novice with this thing. Nobody would believe that I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so let's just take it that this is the first segment, okay? The topic today is reparenting yourself. Hey guys, if you're watching now, I really don't know what happened, but welcome back. Reparenting yourself. The topic is on reparenting yourself, and this topic has to do with people who were raised in any form of abuse, and which would be from verbal to physical to spiritual to emotional. There's a lot of emotional abuse that goes on, and some people don't want to call it abuse because it's such a big word. It's just a huge word. It's a big word. So we don't want to call it that. Anyway, so I'm just inviting people here. Please, I am still getting used to this thing. If y'all can teach me how to invite people. If I mistakenly touched invite and I didn't want to, somebody please tell me how to invite, because I don't know. Anyway, but our Facebook Lives have been very interesting. I see Jane. Hi Jane, beautiful. I did show on infertility, and I mentioned your name. Your name was there. I was hoping you could. Please, no one should call me at this time, because I don't know how to operate this thing. So please don't call me at this time. Anyway, I'm still doing this inviting. Hey, Jane. Oh, you're back. I'm gonna bring a special random person on here, which I do every day before I go to my topic. So please answer. This person knows who they are. So please answer. I'm still waiting for you to answer. Are you answering or not, or should I move on? Just tell me to move on or not. Tell me, so that I could just block that and then just move on. Let me know, okay? So I'm just gonna wait for a few more minutes for people from the other broadcast to come back here, because I'm sure that some people are wondering, hey, what happened to her? So if you could just come back here. Okay, girl, so, okay. Okay. I'm still waiting for folk. Reparenting yourself. This is going to be a good topic today. I really want to thank you guys. I have been getting a lot of feedback. Somebody called me at 3 a.m. yesterday to tell me about the show and how it blessed them. They gave a couple of suggestions, and I am so open to them. So go ahead. It's all to make everybody better. And I'm just going to wait for 3 more minutes, and then I'm just going to go ahead, okay? Hope y'all don't mind. That's what I'm going to do. I'll try another random caller and say hi to them. And if that doesn't work as well, please let me know. Okay. I think I've invited enough. This is something that you do like minutes ahead of time, you know? Minutes ahead of time, girl. You don't do it like this, but that's okay. Okay. So, I'm going to try. Hi, Sister Ethel. How are you? How are you? Huh? How are the kids doing? It has to be a blessing just having them at home. I know you love that. I know that's a blessing. I know that's a blessing. I am calling a random person to come on here just for 1 or 2 minutes, and I say hi to them. So if you see that I'm calling you, answer. Answer. Reparenting yourself is our topic today. Okay, she didn't answer. A lot of people don't want to come on here, huh? No work today. There is work in an hour, sis. 3 o'clock. So I'm going to do this for about 30 to 45, and then I'm going to head on to work. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead. I've been looking for a special random person to call, but I'm just going to go ahead. Okay, so people who suffer from or people who need to reparent themselves will be people who were raised in some form of abuse, like even if it wasn't intended. Now you have to understand that a lot of abuse is unintended, okay, and it's totally different from somebody like who flat out just locks their kids in a room for months and months, and now that's on another level. Now that person now has a disorder. That's totally different. And I'm not getting into that. What I'm getting into are people who were raised in abuse that was inherited. Okay, like it was inherited. So people, now how do you know people who have gone through some form of abuse? They are very defensive, extremely defensive. Like they could go from here to all the way there, like in terms of rage and in terms of anger. Signs, they're easily angry. They misinterpret everything that you're saying. They have a way of making that thing that you said or that thing that you did, they have a way of making it about them. They have a victim mentality, and that's because of how they were raised. They are scared of being left alone. They are scared. They catastrophize. You know, like something happens and they blow it all out of proportion. Like they take it to so many levels. They chop it to so many categories, to so many things. And like sometimes, like when you're talking to somebody like that, you are really, really worried and concerned. Like, how do they even think that way? That's because they were raised in an environment that, you know, where they always had to be on their toes. Okay. They are very codependent or very regressive. So they could be people who are clingy and they hold on tight because they don't want you to leave because of how they were raised. Once again, is their programming. Okay. Or they completely regress because they don't want you to hurt them. Okay. People who have suffered from any form of abuse, they have negative narratives in their head. You are stupid. You are dumb. You should have done that. You shouldn't have said that. You should have left there. You shouldn't have left there. You should have. Oh, it's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. You are fat. You are this. You're not intelligent enough. This. You know, and this is what they keep doing to themselves because there's a narrative, and I know this because I lived it, so I know it. Okay. Very, very defensive, very, very assuming. There's always something going on. There's always something wrong. And half of what they're assuming, it's not even true, really. highly opinionated because their power was taken from them in some kind of measure when they were younger. So when they get older, they subconsciously start looking for something to control, even if it's just an opinion, even if it's just something that that person wore, something that that person said. They always have to say something. They always have to have the last word because they have to be in control. They give, give yourself what you didn't receive. Okay, so anyway, the list is so long. Okay, it's so long, but I'm sure that some of this would resonate with some people that you know, or maybe even in your life. So what caused this dismissals when you were growing up? Being like dismissed, being ignored, being told to shut up, being raised with harshness, with harsh tones. Anything that you say, anything that you do, like you got a beating, not a spanking. A spanking and a beating are two different things. So it caused trauma. It caused like some kind of trauma, and somehow you still grew up through it, and you think that you're okay, but really, if you're honest with yourself, that stuff starts to show. It starts to show at work. It starts to show with your friends. It starts to show in your marriage. It starts to show even with how you parent your children. Maybe one day you're talking to your child and you literally hear the voice of your parents. Like you literally see yourself walking and acting just like that parent. First of all, you have to realize that most people are good. Most people are good. So if your parents didn't do it in the right way, it's more than likely that their parents didn't do it in the right way. And in their head, like they're just doing the best that they can, really. In their head, they are just doing the best that they can, really. Now, do you condone their behavior? No. But when you understand that in their head they were doing the best that they could, then it lessens your anger. It lessens your bitterness towards them, because now you're enlightened and now you understand that, oh, okay, hurting people hurt people. And for them to do it in that method, for them to do it in that manner, for them to use that approach, it just simply means that they too needed some healing in their own lives. Now, a lot of people who were raised in polygamous families, or raised with very, very busy parents, or maybe like one parent is doing all the loving and the other parent is more reserved. People who were raised with very queer family dynamics, you would see a lot of these signs in them, because like what I just mentioned, especially in a polygamous home, there is a lot of abuse in those homes, because there is because like the dynamic is not, it's not a normal dynamic. People who are raised in polygamous homes, there was a lot of competition. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of unease. There is and a lot of boundaries have been crossed already. I mean, come on, like it's a polygamous home. So boundaries have been crossed already. People could just walk into your room anyhow, do whatever they want to do, act anyhow, talk anyhow. Boundaries have been crossed already when you're grown, or when you're being raised in a polygamous home. And so you may think that it's okay, oh, it's normal, oh, I'm strong, I was able to get out of that. But if you're honest with yourself, when you are in relationships, or when you find yourself in certain places, you literally start acting like where you're coming from, because it was not an ideal dynamic. I don't want to say that it was not a normal dynamic, because polygamy is normal to some people. It may be normal, but it's not ideal. It is not an ideal environment. Once again, my topic is on reparenting yourself. A lot of people have to reparent themselves because their parenting was not healthy. Their parenting taught them how to cope and how to have all kinds of defense mechanisms. Their parenting, a lot of people said, I can hardly wait to get out of this house. If you're somebody that said stuff like that, more than likely you are a grown. Sorry, that was my husband who called. So when you are raised with abuse, hi Afiniki, how are you, sis? Hi, brother Karen. Just say hi, y'all. Say hi, y'all. Say hi if you're here. Say hi if you're here. So if you were raised with any form of abuse, like you see, people hear that word abuse and it sounds so big, it sounds so huge, but there's something that is called emotional abuse. There is emotional abuse. Watching your parents fight every day, that is abuse. Watching your mom cry, watching your father cry, like one parent lives in a different country or stuff like that. All of that does something to you. All of that does something to you. So now you have grown chronologically. You are grown and your age says that you're 45 or you're 60, whatever. But then there are some parts of you as a child that has not healed, and you're lashing out that side of you and that part of you on your boss, on your children, on your spouse, whatever. Now if this doesn't apply to you, like, that's okay. But there are a lot of people who were raised with abuse, and their parents didn't even know that they were abusing them, and their parents didn't know that they were abusing them. We are now in a generation where we can talk about these things, and that's why we're having this conversation. Hello. And that's why we're having this conversation. I usually have somebody who I bring on camera. So I'm calling somebody now. If they would answer, that would be awesome. So once again, what are the signs of somebody who has been abused? They're easily angry. They don't know boundaries, or they are too regressed or too codependent. They're scared of being left alone. They catastrophize. Everything is such a big deal. They have negative self-talk, negative narratives. Hi, Dr. Karen. Highly defensive, highly opinionated. Like, you know how there's some people that you go to work or you go to church and you could literally see the wall that they put up. And you're like, ugh, I don't like him, or ugh, I don't like her. I used to be that person until I realized that when I started to go for therapy, then I realized that people who put walls on themselves, people who put walls around them or in front of them, they are scared people. They are insecure and they are hurting. They don't realize that that's what they're doing. Now, some people don't realize that that's what they're doing, because it's not everybody that is emotionally aware of what they're doing. This stuff, like, some people have to be shown, like, hey, that's how you talk, that's how you roll your eyes, that's how you don't say hi to people, that's how defensive you are. Every time that I bring something up to you, you're so defensive. And so when I started to go for therapy after my mother died, because now, like, I went through something called a catharsis. Okay, a catharsis is an emotional wound. Hi, Vanessa. Catharsis is an emotional wound that takes place in your life that you were not aware of. Like, you didn't realize that it was a major wound. Maybe somebody touched you where they shouldn't have touched you. Maybe you were beaten. Beating is different from spanking. Okay, maybe you were always like in your head something was wrong with you, and then now you became an adult, and then something major happened in your life, and when that something major happened in your life, it completely opened the door to all the other traumas, and now you could see everything that happened. That's what happened when my mother died. When my mother died, it was like a tear, and I was just open. I was completely open, and that was a good thing, because now I needed to go for therapy. I had a failed IVF of triplets in that same season. And so here I am going to the gynecologist. Okay, so what can I do? I have lost a set of twins. I have lost a set of triplets. And what do I do? And she just looked at me and she just smiled. And she gave me a sheet of paper. And I'm here thinking that is an appointment for, like, to check my womb or whatever. I looked down it and it was a psychologist. And at first I was so offended, like, but hello, I am coming for gynecology issues. Why are you sending me to a therapist? And of course, when I had my first day with this therapist, I was like, I need to move into this woman's house. Like, I need to move into this hospital. Because I realized that even the IVFs that I was doing was trauma. All of that was reinforcing that I have to keep on trying to get something, that I have to keep on trying, that I am not worthy of just getting something like that. And it only reinforced the rejection that I had when I was younger. It was only reinforcing some rejections that I had in my marriage, some rejections that I had in my friendships. It only reinforced that. And then when my mother died, this was now something that I really couldn't control. This was something that I couldn't fix. This was something that I couldn't pray to God for. She was gone. And so it left this permanent thing in my head that I don't need to keep trying because people are going to leave anyway. I don't need to build friendships and bond with people because they're going to leave anyway. And I had to admit to myself that I had emotional wounds. So never mind that I'm singing all over the place, I'm preaching all over the place, I'm getting hefty checks of honorariums, and I'm Lady O. Never mind that. All of us have something that we're dealing with. And if we're not dealing with, we all have something that we have been awakened to, and then we can help others. Signs that you grew up in an abusive environment is boundaries have been crossed. You're highly defensive. You're very, very assuming. You always assume that they're talking about you. You always assume the worst. You catastrophize. All hell is always breaking loose in your life. You're, like I said, you're very, very defensive. And in relationships, you are highly codependent. Highly. I mean, like you hold on to people. You cling on to people. And then you could be the exact opposite to where you don't cling at all. You don't talk to people. You purposely just stay back so they don't hurt you. And I said that what caused you to become like that is you probably grew up in a dismissive environment, or you grew up with a lot of calamity happening to you. I would share two stories. For me, when I was 9 years old, like my parents, they just took me to boarding school. And this is not the regular kind of Nigerian parenting, because in our culture, yes, they do take their children to boarding school. Not all of them, but some of them. In my case, there was a situation that had happened, which of course I was a child, so I didn't have any prism, I didn't have any perspective. And then so I go off to boarding school, and when my dad and his entourage, because my father was on television 5 days a week, my dad was Bishop Benaruma, and when the car was leaving, I remember running after that car, and I kept running and I kept running, and I was screaming, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." And the car kept going and it kept going. And I just didn't understand how I was in a house with so much love. My mother was there, my dad was there, and I'm an only child. And then the next day I'm in a boarding school. I didn't understand that. You understand? Like, I didn't understand it. I didn't get it. Of course, now as an adult, I get it. They were having their issues, but that effect, that was my first introduction to being left. Because if somebody who was such an anchor in my life would leave, then anybody would leave. And so I didn't bother to bond with anyone. And then, of course, I also had the PK syndrome. That's the pastor's kids syndrome, where you are highly invisible, So I had that as well. So by the time I got married, I remember when my husband too suffered from all kinds of abuse that was very, very obvious and very, very intentional, So he was doing his own form and I was doing my own form. And that's what happens. Like when you're dealing with abuse, or when you are a product of some kind of abuse, knowingly or unknowingly, you become abused to other people. Hello, Mr. Enoch. You become abusive to other people, either verbally or emotionally or even spiritually. You become manipulative. You do all you can, you cope. You just cope through life. You're really not living. You're just coping. Once again, our topic is on reparenting yourself. So now that you're married, now that you are working, now that you're grown, Now that you're grown, please go ahead and hit share and hit like. Now that you're grown, some of these things now start to permeate in other people's lives, okay? Well, people who are involved with you. If you grew up in a house with harsh tones, parents are fighting, or absentee father or absentee mom, even though your mother did all that she could do to raise you, even though she was a wonderful person, the fact that you did not grow up in a normal family dynamic already caused something in here. And you have to admit that. You have to admit that. Hello, Anu. So when I see a lot of pastors, especially a lot of pastors, there's no crime in taking on the call that God has given to you. Of course, you should obey, but you should also be aware of your family dynamics and how you could bleed on your congregation, how you could bleed on your wife, bleed on your husband, bleed on your children, because already being in a minister's home is already a dynamic. You understand? So please just have mercy on that. So I was telling you that when my mother died, it opened me up to realize that I had been traumatized for many years. I was traumatized in my marriage. I was traumatized when I repeated the 7th grade 5 times. And what that told me was that I didn't even have to try. Something was wrong with me. Something is very, very wrong with you. Something is wrong with you. And by the time that I actually moved on to the 8th grade, it was not celebrated. Why? Because then I ended up with a spinal disease, and so we had to rush for surgery. And so my effort was dismissed. So people who were raised in some kind of abuse or in some kind of dismissals, when you are an adult, when you do something big, you don't even acknowledge it. People tell you how beautiful you look and you say, oh, this ugly thing. You don't even celebrate yourself because a lot of milestones in your life were not celebrated. So sometimes you don't even know just how much of a big deal you are. You don't even know you don't even applaud yourself for being able to wake up when you couldn't even like it was a miracle to get up, but you make it seem so easy. My cousin told me when I first moved to New York in 2016, I was sleeping on the floor. I was sleeping on a floor. When I came back to New York the second time, I was flat out homeless. Okay, so people don't know these things. And the reason that I'm able to just keep going, part of that is because that I have gotten so used to drama. I had gotten so used to drama growing up, so used to shifting, so used to moving. My parents moved a lot, so I didn't have the opportunity to bond with people in school, to bond with this. It seemed like it was normal. So when I became an adult, it was easy for me to sleep on the floor. It was easy for me to I started to attract things that were very, very abnormal and very queer because my environment and my psyche knew that I was going to be able to stomach it because I had a high threshold for pain. I had a high threshold for rejection. I had a high threshold for nonsense. I had a very high threshold. You could pee on me and I'll think it's water. You could slap me and I'll think you love me. I was in relationships with men who would pour cocaine on my body. I was in relationships with people who would beat me and slap me, open the car and try to push me out of it. And to me, the more they abused me, the more normal I thought it was because I had a high threshold for drama. I had a high threshold for pain. Now, you may see yourself as somebody who, I'm a strong person. Okay. Yes, you are a strong person, but you're also a very hurt person. If you're somebody who fits into anything that I just said, you are a very, very hurt person. And you have to work on that. And so for me, you see, life will bring you to some kind of place where it will slap you. It will slap you to come out of that place, or it would leave you to drown, and you have to make that decision. I didn't want to drown. I didn't want to drown at all. So I decided to start reparenting myself. Hi, Miss Shaq. Hello, Miss Shaq. Every good thing that my father did, I took it in stride. And everything that he didn't do right, I wrote everything down and I reversed it, and I started to give that to myself. I also started to practice what we call radical acceptance, accepting that something happened and something is not going to change. Remember that you can't change your past, right? But you can change where you're headed. A lot of those people who hurt you, a lot of those people really didn't mean to hurt you. Hurting people hurt people. Now that I'm older and I could look back, the way that my father did some things, oh, okay, when I look into his bloodline, when I look into his family line, when I look into his own family dynamics, I don't look at his PhD. I don't look at his bachelor's. I don't look at his exposure to America. If y'all know my father is sweet. My father is a wonderful man. But then ask me, because it's not your responsibility to look into my father's business, right? It's my responsibility to look into the history of my dad. When I started looking into his history, when I started looking at his upbringing, when I started looking at all of that, I was like, ooh, okay, that's where that's coming from. And then I started to have mercy on that on that dynamic. I started to have mercy on it. I started to shower it with love, because this was just a man just like me who just found himself growing up. Boom, he becomes a father. Boom, he becomes a bishop. Boom, and he also has his own issues. And let me tell you something about power. And let me tell you something about being so accomplished. When you have all those PhDs and you're not healed, when you have a huge congregation and you're not healed, when you have people now answering you yes ma'am and yes sir, and you're not healed, subconsciously you would hide and you would bury yourself within your accolades, within your titles, and then if care is not taken, you become a narcissist. But you don't even realize that that's what's going on. And all of that becomes a security blanket. And you're just hurting deep on the inside. I remember one day from nowhere, me, my mom, and my dad, we were going back and forth, y'all, like not fists, but like three of us were just fighting and talking over each other. And my father said something that shocked me, and I'll never forget it. He said, none of you even read my books. None of you read my books. And both of us just like, what? Like, you are Bishop Benaruma. Like it shouldn't matter if we read your books or not. And now that I've gotten older, I remember one day that I looked at my husband and I said, you don't even read my podcast. You don't even listen to my podcast. You don't even. And the moment I said that, I heard my father. And I was like, whoa. He felt like he was buried in his profession, and the only two people that he could be exposed to, we weren't probably, like, in his head, like, we weren't probably giving him all of the support that he needed. He forgot that my mother and I were in church every Sunday. My mother did not like a whole bunch of those people. There are a whole lot of stuff that pastors' wives cannot stand, pastors' children cannot stand. We're the ones who hear it all. Y'all don't hear it. So he didn't see that. So we were upset too, because it's like, hello, like we go to church with you every Sunday, every Wednesday. We allow strangers into the home. We cook for all these people. We give money to all these people. We share our clothes with all these people. What more do you want? So we were also defensive, because we also felt like we were invisible to him. And then he felt like he was invisible to us, because he felt so spent ministering to all of these people. And he just wanted to come home to these two people, but we had our own resentment as well. Hi, Amba, Keita, or Kate. I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong. Hurting people hurt people, and then it's just a vicious cycle. It's just going on and going on. And I heard Ian Levanzant say that it takes 13 generations to actually break a cycle. So, I mean, for goodness sake, most of us here now watching and here, we're like in our 30s and 40s and 50s. So you do know that we're not going to be in the generation where all of it is completely eradicated. That's Dr. Karen's word. But it can start with me and you. We could notice that, hey, some of these dynamics in which we were raised in was just not healthy. And we also need to have mercy on our parents because they didn't know. Really, a lot of our parents were raised in polygamy. A lot of our parents were raised in a one parent home, an absentee dad or an absentee mom. So all of that would add to some kind of trauma. Okay, so now what are the things that you can do is, if you notice that now you are acting up. I really hate to use that word because it sounds like you're a child, but you know what? Maybe God allowed me to use this word because you see, you only chronologically grew, but your inner child is still there. All those parts of you that were not paid attention to when you were growing up. Remember how I told you that my dad was driving away and I was chasing the car? My husband had to watch his mom. Oh my, you are digging deep. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, sir. My husband, his mother told him to go outside and buy something and to call his uncle. She knew that she was dying. He didn't know. He came back and she was dead. So in our marriage, whenever my husband is going out of town, he never let me go to the airport with him. My husband never let me walk out of the house and say bye. He'll be like, go back inside, go back inside. So in my head, I'm like, oh, he doesn't like me. You see, because I didn't know that aspect of his life. Oh, he doesn't like me, or he doesn't want to be seen with me. And so I started to be ashamed of even being with my husband because this was the interpretation that I got. Till years later when he told me that his mother told him, hi, Chichi, that his mother told him to walk away and that he came back and she was dead. So can you see how your upbringing and things that you were raised in, knowingly and unknowingly, can really, really mess you up when you do get older? And that's what I love about marriage. Marriage is an eye-opener to your insecurities. Marriage is an eye-opener to your wounds and to your hurts. There's a book that I'm writing now, and it's called Wound Mates, not roommates. Wound mates. A lot of marriages are in wound mates. Hi, Pastor Patricia. And so that was one aspect. And then another aspect was when my husband had gotten a job in London. I was like, oh, honey, so what month are you coming for me? Like, what month am I going to be moving? And my husband was like, oh, baby, don't worry. I will send for you. Let me just go and take care of some things. And immediately I went crazy. Remember that boarding school incident? I immediately thought that my husband was going and he was not going to come back. Because when my parents dropped me off at boarding school when I was 9 years old, I was running after the car. And now in my 30s, I assumed that my husband was just moving. So some of y'all need to admit that your upbringing is showing up in different ways. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for allowing God to use you. Thank you so much, sis. Your upbringing is beginning to show up and is beginning to ooze and is beginning to smell everywhere. Tell yourself the truth. Now, the first thing when I started to go for therapy, the first thing that my therapist started to do with me is she started to help me with what we call radical acceptance. You have to accept that all of that in your childhood, it all happened. It happened. Stop running away from it. Stop running away from it. There's some of you who can't even speak to some family members now because they are a trigger to what happened yesteryears. Pick up the phone. Fix some stuff. You need to call some people. Did that really happen? Did so-and-so really touch me? Did you see how dad beat me till I was bleeding from head to toe? Did you hear all those things that mom said? You have to admit that those things were said and those things were done. And then when you write them all down, all of those things that really hurt you, because some of y'all now are in your marriages and you're acting the same way. Some of you are treating your children the same way. And their children or your children are going to treat their children the same way if you don't fix this. Write down a list of all of that. Now we're getting into the topic, okay? Reparenting yourself. Write down a list of all of that, All of that hurt you when you were growing up. All of those dismissals, whether they meant it or not, write it down. Stop acting like you've grown. You're only chronologically grown, but your emotions are still that child that wasn't told well done. That child that when you were screaming and you were like, mommy, mommy, don't talk to me now, I'm busy. That child that when you gave your mother money or whatever, she looked at you and asked you, why are you giving me money? Take it back. Or you bought a family member a gift and they returned it. Yeah. Write them down, all of those hurts. It made you feel rejected. Write it down. Now, after you've written it down, have mercy on those things. Stop seeing your parents as your parents. That's what delivered me. Even for those of you who are married, stop seeing your husband as your husband. Stop seeing your wife as your wife. See that person as an adult, as God's child, as somebody who has their own issues, and they're just doing the best they can. It's very hard for me to be upset now in my life. No, because I use this principle now. When people are tripping, in the past few months, people have done some stuff to me, and I would just stay there and I would cry. Now, if it was last year or maybe 2 years ago, I would have called somebody to let them know. You understand? But now, you roll your eyes at me. I know that you have an insecurity. You're gossiping about me. I know that you're running away from yourself, so you have to have control by gossiping about me. You lie against me. I know that it's because that you're lying to yourself about your own issues. I don't get upset anymore. I just feel sorry for you. And I have compassion. So it's the same thing that you have to do with your parents. Before you can reparent yourself, you have to have compassion on your parents. Some of those things that they did. Because a lot of them just didn't mean to do them. A lot of them just raised you how they were raised. A lot of them grew up in polygamous homes. Especially if you're from Africa. So a lot of people just don't know how to act because of how they were treated. When you write down all of those things, then you start to have mercy on those things, one by one. How they didn't show up to your recital. How they didn't say good job. How they didn't say well done. Do your history. Find out how your own parents were raised. Find out if your parents were if their parents were absent. Because if their parents were absent, how do you expect them to be present for you? As far as they're concerned, as long as they fed you and put clothes on you, that's it. You should be thanking God. Because maybe somebody didn't even feed them. So that's why sometimes when you're talking to your parents, you don't understand why they don't understand. That's because in their head, they're doing the best that they can. Yes, Abba Father, let your healing balm flow. Amen. Thank you, Dr. Karen. Okay, so this is what I don't like about we ministers and over spiritualizing stuff. Okay, let's stop the over spiritualizing. There's certain things that are just basic. If you were raised in a dynamic that was just different, that was special, that was queer, that more than likely you have emotional wounds and they have to be healed. Otherwise, your congregation is going to see it soon. Trust me, somebody is going to spot it. Okay? Now, so when you start having mercy on all of those things that your parents did, and you now you find out their history, you start seeing them as a human being. When I got married, I started seeing my mother as a woman. I stopped seeing my mother as my mother. I started seeing her as a woman because some of those things that she used to say and some of those things that I used to see, it started to resonate because now it was happening in my own home. And I was like, whoa, mom was not crazy after all. She was not crazy, okay? I started to see those same traits. And then when I saw that it was getting out of hand, I would tap my husband. And that's one thing I love about that man. Is he is ready. He is ready anytime to talk. And I tapped him and I showed him the pattern. Some of y'all have patterns from your upbringing and it's repeating themselves in your home. And I showed them a pattern and they were over 4 patterns, y'all. And I was like, look, boy, We have to break this. I actually said, look, nigga, but look, we have to break this. You need to stop behaving like this now because our family backgrounds is attracting these patterns. So you need to stop that. And I need to stop that. I need to stop all the yelling and screaming because nobody wants to hear that. Okay? And you need to stop being dismissive. See, because now I was dismissed in some ways. So you need to stop being dismissive. And then he told me how he was being dismissed as a child. And then so we both had to make a decision that we are building the Akamalafe family. We are not building the Oruma family, and we are not building the Babatunde family. We are building the Akamalafe family, and this is how we're going to build it. We're going to build it void of abuse. And all of this happened after like 6 years of emotional torture and the hell that both of us went through. Like it just finally clicked. Like, whoa, okay, so that's what's happening, and that's what's been happening. Tell yourself the truth. When you shower all of those things that your parents did and you start to see your parents as human beings and as children who are still trapped in there just like you, when you start seeing that, then you start having mercy on it. It doesn't even hurt you anymore. It doesn't even get on your nerves. It really doesn't. And then if you want to confront it, if your parents are still alive, like you could go ahead and you could have a conversation. Don't confront. Just have a conversation if it really, really bothers you. I remember when I went to Nigeria, it was last year. And I remember just looking at my dad and I said, Dad, it would take God to come down in the flesh to remove me from where I am in New York. It would take God. It would take God. And he laughed and he said, I understand. I understand. Do you know why? Because we moved too many times. We moved to 5, 6 different states. We were always moving, always moving, always moving. And so there was a problem with rooting and planting. I was always having new best friends, new teachers, new this and new that. And that really, it caused a negative effect when I got older. People who are raised in military homes or in police homes or in homes where y'all are just moving, missionary homes, you're moving all of the time. Yes, you explore the world. You are highly versed. Like a lot of people say that I'm so articulate and you speak so this and you're so knowledgeable. Thank God. And that's because of all of my traveling and all of that. But there's also a backlash to that. There's another side to that. It's very, very hard for me to bond with people. Because I was always planted and uprooted, planted, uprooted, planted, uprooted. And I said, Dad, I'm not going to raise my family like that. I'm not going to do that. And thank God, like, I've been filing for my husband's papers for forever. And it's going to happen soon. And I really, really thank God that both of us are in agreement to not do it, because my husband too, he was also raised in a home where his father was in Sokoto and then his father was in Zaria and then his father was here no, all of that is not healthy. All of that is not healthy, and so like sometimes as parents, like we have to make a decision on the choices that we are going to make and see if it's going to cause a negative ripple effect. Okay. So, you can confront those things if you want to. Okay, that's if you want to. That was my way of confronting it. That was my way of confronting it because, like, they did the best that they could. The best that they could. So that was my way of confronting it. And then, hi, Martha. Hi, Tai, Jimon. Okay, so forgive them. And then now start to practice listening to yourself. When somebody is talking to you and you notice that you're about to be defensive, catch yourself. That's how you start reparenting yourself. You catch yourself. You pull yourself back. Not everybody is out to get you. Not everybody is talking about you. Not everybody is out to hurt you. Catch yourself. Start noticing the areas where you are insecure. People who are defensive and opinionated are insecure. People who are defensive and opinionated are insecure. Pray not to replicate the dysfunction. Yep. Yep, pray not to replicate the dysfunction. Thank you, Amba. Yeah. Okay, so start catching yourself. And then start using words of affirmation. Google I am affirmations. I am strong. I am smart. I am not a reject. I belong. I am enough. You see, people who were raised in these type of dynamics, we overdo or we underdo. We either people please so you don't leave, or we don't even please at all. We're very, very extreme because of that type of dynamic that we were raised in. So you need to catch yourself. When your child wants to hang out with you and you're like, Fimile, leave me alone. Not now. Catch yourself and be like, okay, honey, so not now because daddy is busy, but we can go at 5. And you make sure that when it's 5, y'all go hang out. Don't be like your past. Because you know how that stuff hurts you. So don't hurt anybody else, right? Okay. Now, write down a list of everything that your parent or that a parent is supposed to do. Everything a parent is supposed to do. A parent it cooks for the child, clothes the child, protects the child, gives boundaries, corrects the child, teaches the child English, gives the child good food. A parent does not give a child poison to drink. So now that you are an adult and you're drinking soda, you're drinking alcohol, not red wine now, but you're drinking alcohol, you know what I mean, and you're giving yourself all of that, that's not reparenting yourself, right? So when you write down the list of everything that a parent does, you start giving that to yourself. You start taking vacations. Hi, patience. You start taking vacations. You start wearing good clothes. You start cleaning your room. Remember how your mother said, clean your room? You start cleaning your room. You become your own parent. You start feeding yourself good food. You start loving yourself. You start striking boundaries. You know how that person tried to hurt you, how that neighbor tried to hurt you, and your mother put that person in his or her place? You start to protect yourself. You start to protect yourself. You start to guard your heart. You have to become that parent to yourself. All of those things that your parents didn't know how to do, you start to give it to yourself. Because you cannot give from a deficit. You can only give from an overflow. And the reason why some of your marriages are crazy, and the reason why some of you are going through so much turmoil in your jobs and in your relationships, is because you were given from a place of deficit. You don't have anything to give because you have been hurting for so long. People who have hurt for so long, they don't have anything to give. There is no depth on the inside except pain. So you give whatever's on the inside, which is pain. You have to reparent yourself. I don't care how old you are. You could be 60. You could be 70. If you were raised in very unusual dynamics, and now you found yourself in a queer marriage and a queer job and a queer this, you're such a people pleaser. You don't know how to say no. You always say yes, or you always say no. You're very, very extreme. You're scared of attachments. You yell at your children. You yell at yourself. You kill flies everywhere. When you're coming home, your children are running away from you. All of that. You need to start talking to yourself, because your upbringing is beginning to show on you. And then you start to reparent yourself. You start to love yourself. You start to give to yourself. You see, with me, I buy myself a gift every time that I'm done with an assignment. I'm a master's student. We write papers like APA style papers of 12 pages. 8 pages, 13 pages on very, very deep stuff like traumatology and victimology and thanatology. A lot of work. And when I do that, I'm like, girl, I am proud of you. I go buy myself something. And sometimes I just buy myself something just because I deserve it. Celebrate yourself. Remember when I told you that I repeated all of those classes? And because I repeated all of those classes, I felt like I would never be celebrated. And every time that I just managed to cross that hurdle, another thing happened. And then that was dismissed. Then I crossed another one, and then that was dismissed. I don't do that now as an adult. I remember when I had finished my 12th grade year, and I didn't pass the math proficiencies. The math proficiency is that state exam that you write to get into the university. But I passed all my classes and I graduated from my school, but I couldn't go into the university. All of my friends had end of year parties, end of class parties, and my father told me that I couldn't have a party. I mean, like, we literally came from graduation and went home, and all of my friends went out to party and everything, and my dad was like, nope, you are going to study math first thing tomorrow morning. And that's because my father was a PhD. Now, when I was a child, that didn't resonate. You understand? Now, what he should have done, was, okay, so you go out and you have your own fun, and tomorrow, like, we're going to start on this. You see, but him not letting me go celebrate told me that it didn't matter how hard I tried, I was invisible. It didn't matter. I have to work so hard to be applauded. I have to work so hard to be validated. I have to work so hard to do this. And I found out that I started doing that in relationships. I would stay in relationships where men would spit at me, where men would yell at me. And I was just waiting for a higher plateau. And the more and the higher it went, the higher the abuse, the more I loved them, because my threshold for dismissal and pain was on a very high level. Yep, the next day, my dad really did put me in that math, and I got 50 points over. You see, now what he did was a good thing. His mind was in the right place, but his approach was not right. His heart was in the right place, but the approach was not right. And I'm sure that he would do it differently now. So now I know that when my child, if my child happens to repeat the 7th grade 20 million times and they happen to finally cross over, I know to throw a huge party, because that's a big deal. Because a child who is repeating classes, trust me, it's already tearing on them. Even if they don't show it, trust me, they feel inadequate. I had to watch all of my friends go 5 years ahead of me. I had to watch all of that. But life also comes full circle. So don't worry about your delays, because I also know a lot of people now who are 5 years behind me. Those same people are now 5 years behind me. A few of them. Moving on, I digress. So remember to write a list of things that a parent does and give that to yourself. Applaud yourself. Practice radical acceptance. Google radical acceptance. Read on it. Study it. Remember that nobody owes you anything. Stop expecting things. Do you know why you expect stuff? Because there is a deficit in your life. Because there is an area in your life in which you were not giving. And to some people, there are areas. There are so many areas. So you expect stuff from your children. You expect stuff from your husband. Expect stuff from your wife. Honey, just thank God that you're even here. I mean, like, the moment that I started to practice radical acceptance, I noticed that I couldn't change anybody. I noticed that I couldn't change my husband. I noticed that I could only change myself. And then I also noticed that nobody owes me anything, and that anything that anybody is doing, they are doing the best that they can. Remember how Jesus said, Father, forgive them because they know not what they do? Those people do not know what they do. So what they're doing is what they know how to do. It may not be the right thing, but it's what they know how to do. See, some don't put up. I don't understand what I wrote. Remember that we attract who we are. So that's why we have to heal, okay? Because we begin to attract who we are. Excuse me. I remember when I had a big opportunity to minister somewhere and to get into the gates. Excuse me. I have been tested for COVID. No, I do not have COVID, okay? Okay. I ate a lot. Like, I ate rice with so much pepper. And now it's just, it's just bad. Anyway, we attract who we are. Yes. We attract who we are. We attract who we are. So, another thing that helped me is that I started to appreciate the little things. Start to see life for what it is. Start to look at the trees and really, really look at the trees. Another thing that I practiced, of course, like I started to Google the promises of God, and I started to recite that to myself. I also Googled the I am affirmations. Google it, I am affirmations. And then I also downloaded the feeling wheel. Download the feeling wheel. It's very, very powerful. Whenever you're going through something, just look at the wheel and identify what you're going through, and keep digging like an onion. Just keep digging, and then you get to the root of it. Okay. But another thing that helped me was that I started to appreciate the little things. You could Google consciousness. Start appreciating the sound. You could also Google mindfulness. Calm down in your spirit and do this intentionally. When you go to work, don't observe for what's wrong and how that boss is going to run her mouth again. Observe for the good things. Observe how you actually do get paid every week. Observe that this is on time. Observe that maybe the nursing assistant or maybe the nursing supervisor is sick. Observe that they too, all of those people at work, all of them have their issues. You will be surprised that some of them are being beaten. Some of them are homeless. They still manage to come to work. Everybody has issues. Everybody has a demon that they're trying to get off their back. Everybody has something. Okay? Start being aware. Start being conscious. Less defensive. Start waiting and looking for a fight. People who were raised in abusive dynamics, you start looking for fights subconsciously. You start hearing stuff that people didn't even say. Subconsciously. Calm yourself down. Listen to a lot of worship music. Listen to classical music. I try very, very hard not to watch movies that are scary or with blood. Well, I see blood every day at work. And I try to watch cartoons or comedies or, feed yourself with good stuff so that what comes out will be good. Okay? Okie dokie. So that's it for today. My emotional healing school, we finally finished the syllabus yesterday. School starts June the 1st. It's $20 in America. It's 5,000 Naira for Nigerians. It's an emotional healing school that God enabled me to found. And in this first batch of students, we have about 30 students now. We are teaching from fragmentation. Fragmentation is when you go through so much trauma that your brain splits, not physically, but the memory. You dissociate yourself from that rape or from that beating or from that, you dissociate because it's too painful. You keep living your life, but that thing is somewhere stuck in your tissue, and then one day something happens and all of those memories come flooding back. In that class in fragmentation, we are teaching you how you are different personalities because now you're fragmented. So we're teaching you how now you are a walking coping mechanism. You are not a whole person. You're in fragments. So that's one of our classes. I know that we have a wholeness class. I know that we have a forgiveness class, forgiving them and forgiving yourself. A lot of people have forgiven people, but they can't forgive themselves, which is kind of counterproductive because you kind of need to forgive them first before you... No. You kind of need to forgive yourself, and then it's easier to forgive them, okay? So if you're interested, just send me a message on my DM or in my messenger, and I'll get you all the information. Hi, Cassandra. And I'll get you all of that information. God has just been faithful. He has been very, very good. I have to go to work now. I work a 16-hour shift today with my COVID patients. But I had to bring this to you today to reparent yourself. Forgive your parents. Forgive your uncle. Forgive your auntie. Forgive your relatives. A lot of those people only did what they also, they were also mirroring where they were coming from. They are also hurting. Stop seeing your parents as your parents. See them as human beings. Stop seeing your spouses as your spouses. See them as human beings. Don't expect anything from anybody. Nobody owes you anything. You work on yourself. You work on your wounds. You see a therapist. You see a counselor. If you're a pastor and you're watching, please, it's important for you not to bleed in front, like it's important for you not to bleed on your congregation. You have wounds too. Those of you who are overachievers, PhDs and big titles and all of that, please remember that you are susceptible and you have a very, very high propensity to hide behind your titles. So please notice that this is a thing, and then it could actually switch to narcissism, which is a whole nother level of disorder. Okay. And a lot of pastors that I know, not all of them, but a lot of people with big credentials, are suffering from narcissistic personality disorder because now they have found themselves in a grandiose place. And because they are still wounded children, it's pretty much like giving a child $1 million. Basically that, like, yeah. So when you have a big congregation and you have all that money coming in and you're a PhD, you're a doctor, a lawyer and all of that, and you're so busy, and some of you are running and you're hiding on to that, So picture what it looks like to give a 5-year-old, or whenever you had your first trauma. My first trauma was when I was 9 years old, which I told you, imagine giving that 9-year-old $1 million. And imagine what's going to happen. They're going to throw half of it in the toilet. They're going to tear it up. They're going to eat it. They're going to throw it on the street. They're going to poop on it and use it to write on the wall because they don't know its value. So, hurting people hurt people. And if you're somebody who is in a place of power, do know that you have a very high propensity to be narcissistic. That's if you grew up in an abusive dynamic. Yeah, you could hide under that. You could be running. So reparent yourself. Reparent yourself. What did I say? I said go on Google. Google the feeling wheel. Google radical acceptance. Google mindfulness. And there was one more thing. Google the I am affirmations. Look in the mirror and say it to yourself till you believe it. Thank you all so much for being here. Hopefully you could be a mender, because I don't call them mentees. I call them menders in the Rock College. I hope that you can join us for emotional healing. God bless you. Read your Bible. Pray every day. You know how they used to sing that song to us when we were kids? It's amazing now as an adult. You start to really, really appreciate all those morning devotions and all of that. Really, read your Bible. Pray every day if you want to grow. It's only God who can heal you, but even before God heals you, you have to admit that you're wounded. God bless you. I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow I am bringing in a guest, and my guest is going to be DJ Gasparella, and my topic, our topic is how to follow your dreams at an older age. Because now you're old and you just think that you can't even push. So he's going to encourage you. Before I leave, I would like to bring somebody on camera. It's going to be a random person. Let me see who I can bring on camera. Let me see who I can bring on camera. Please accept it. If I'm calling you, please accept it. If I'm calling you, please accept it. This is my problem with this Facebook thing. Like, I'm still learning it. I'm still learning it. Yeah, I'm clicking on it and it's not happening. Okay, maybe I should bring somebody else. No? Okay. So, maybe tomorrow I can do it before I bring my guest. Thank you all so much for watching. Be healed, okay? Bye.